This is Not Another Church Podcast with your host, Pastor Tom. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started in today's episode of Not Another Church Podcast. And we, as you guys know, we are continuing our conversation about marriage. We've been talking for the last few weeks about expectations in marriage. And so we have some folks with us. Let me just kind of go around the room, let everybody introduce themselves. First, we have my co-host, Ann.
Hey, I'm Ann, Tom's wife.
This is my bride of 29 in March years.
Yes.
We've been married for 29 years. So go ahead and introduce y'allself.
Yeah, you're very southern.
Yeah, the Alabama's coming out.
I'm Ashlyn Cagle.
And I'm Justin Cagle.
So how long have you guys been married?
Going on, 3 years?
In March.
Has it been that long?
I know, it's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
We
Wow.
did their premarital counseling, and it seems
doesn't
like just
feel like that.
yesterday, doesn't it?
Blinked and here we are.
Yeah.
Wow, 3 years. So that's actually a really good point to ask, because you guys went through expectations with us, and we talked a lot about your expectations. And I'm going to say up front, I'm going to go on a limb, and Ann, you correct me. I'm going to say that you guys were the best equipped as far as expectations of any couple that we have counseled.
Oh, I agree. I've even told her mother that.
Yeah.
I mean, when we met you guys, you were pretty quiet, and then as we got to know you and kind of learned your story,
Yeah.
and you know how you got together and what had happened to you in the past and all of that, I was just like, wow. Because you don't run across a lot of people
Yeah.
that know each other as well as you guys did. And you really hadn't known each other for, years and years, but you knew what you wanted because of past relationships,
Right.
past things that had happened. And you had asked each other all the right questions. You had really gotten to know each other. And I felt like you were really set up with a good foundation for marriage. So I guess today we're going to be like, was that right? You know?
Well, before we move off that, just so that everybody who's watching knows, normally when we do expectations, which if you saw the episode where we kind of reviewed that, it's really normal in marriage counseling or premarital counseling that when we go talk about expectations for holidays, expectation about finances, expectations about sex, for at one point the couple to turn to each other and one of the guys to say, "What?" That's why we do the expectations.
Right.
You guys didn't do that any, and could answer each other's
And you kept
questions.
saying, we've already talked about this. And that's one of the reasons we do it, because people don't talk
Right.
about certain
Oh,
things.
yeah. Like, we have plenty of friends that I feel like we're in those shoes. And we would talk to them and be like, well, that's what I feel like really built up our relationship, though, was going through that. And we had already talked about it, but it was kind of like, okay, this is really what we need to be doing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think even a lot of people that are already married either haven't talked about that stuff and then things surprise them,
Right.
or they get in the relationship and they have different ideas of how things should be going,
Yeah.
and it causes a lot of conflict.
Oh, we've done expectations with couples who've been married for 15 years and have them go, "You think what?" and we're sitting there going, "Wow, you guys really should know this.
Yeah.
You've lived in the same house for 15 years."
Yeah.
You guys were the perfect premarital couple. So everything's been perfect in your marriage.
Oh, yeah. Right?
I mean, we haven't. I mean,
Oh, wait.
I would say definitely as close to perfection as you can get. But, I guess over time, expectations can change.
Yes.
Right.
And you kind of really have to be fluid with it.
And that's kind of where we're at since Addie. I mean,
Yeah.
she's 8 months old, so a lot has changed, obviously. So
I do more housework than I ever thought I would in my
There you
entire
go.
life.
Do you have an apron?
I do not. I do need an apron. Like
Maybe
a
that's what I
camouflage
need to
apron
get.
would be really
That
cool.
would be
Anniversary
cool.
gift.
There you go. And Ann got me an apron for grilling that says "Kiss the Cook," and it's got a little Hershey's Kiss on it. So, how do you think that what you thought about marriage 3 years ago has lined up with what reality's been?
I think it's kind of the same.
Yeah.
I expected, just being together all the time might, cause some arguments or little spats or anything like that. But I guess as long as you keep a cool head and you actually discuss what you need to, it's
And that's his big thing. That's where, you know, we were so big on communicating, and that's obviously, you know, a great thing. But he was always like, if we get in any kind of argument, that we're going to handle it. Like, you know, we're kind of like right then and there people.
Right.
We want to
Right.
get it done. It's over and done with.
Get her done.
Yeah. So
at least some sort of resolution.
right.
Like it may be, you know, discuss it in the morning, but
Right.
at least we have some sort of game plan to figure out what we need to be doing.
Right.
Yeah. And that's great. Like, people need to hear that are listening,
Yeah.
is that, you know, sometimes you can't, you know, it's something important or something that you just really disagree about.
I mean, I will say it's not always easy.
yeah.
But-
you guys have learned that if it's a big deal and you
Right.
need to go to bed and now you're just grumpy, you know, or
Oh, yeah.
whatever, that you can say, okay, we need to sleep, and then we're
Right.
gonna revisit this when we've calmed down and we're rested, and you've
Yeah.
learned that. And that's something that a lot of people don't do. People sweep things under the rug and
Yeah.
they harbor that stuff and they never get back to it.
Right.
Or, you know, they just keep fighting until the wounds get deep. So that's a good thing that y'all have learned.
So, walk us through I'll let you pick. I'm not going to say like the biggest argument that you've had, but walk us through a conflict that you've had.
So most of the time they're just so small you don't
Yeah,
really,
like we don't even. I guess when you were working with Osmos and you were gone all the time, like he was kind of traveling and working, and so I was at home. This was, of course, before he had Addie, and I'm a chicken, so I didn't
Yeah.
like to be at home by myself.
and I hated that she was not at the
Yeah.
house we were paying the money for.
Did you go to your parents'
Oh,
house?
absolutely! I like packed the dogs up. Stayed at mom's forever.
And you didn't like that.
No.
Yeah.
Not I mean
So it would just cause like little arguments here and there, nothing like super major. But then we finally realized, okay, this isn't for us. You know, we've got to find something else.
So, the solution that you came to together was you needed to find a different job.
Yeah.
pretty much. And I really like, don't get me wrong, I loved the job.
And that's what I hated
But-
because I knew he loved what he was doing.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh.
But I hated not being there and thinking that if we do eventually have a child, like I'm not going to be in that child's life. And that's my biggest fear
Yeah.
is not being in my own child's life.
Yeah. Well, that was probably a good solution, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of folks do, especially when they're young or newly married, is they retreat to mom and dad. Sometimes it's when they have a fight. Sometimes it's when, you know, one of them is out of town or whatever. Not the healthiest
No.
pattern. It really isn't, because you guys are the team,
Right.
you know, and it can make it almost seem like you're dating again.
Yeah.
And and we talked about this in premarital counseling, for some couples, you know, there's the biblical principle of leaving and cleaving. And especially in the early years of a marriage, that's a really hard
Explain
thing.
what that means for somebody that may be listening and not know.
Well, Jesus defined marriage this way. He said, "For a man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh." That's what marriage is. And so, for the first step of that, a man shall leave his father and mother, and obviously the wife shall leave her father and mother. And so there's the leaving part, and then cleaving to each other. And so in modern terms, what that's essentially saying is that you two are now the team.
Right.
That there is no I and I, there's now we, and that while we still honor our father and mother, we still respect our parents, we still want their input, and we want their wisdom and experience,
And you still spend time with them and hang out with them, and they're a big part of your life.
but we're the team.
Right.
Yeah, they're
Right.
not in the
Right.
middle of your decisions and your, you know, you've got your business and they've got their business,
Right,
and
right.
that stuff kind of stays separate.
So that leaving and cleaving in the early part of marriages can be really hard, especially if one of those folks run to their mom and dad and talk about the issues. And let me just give you an example that we've helped someone work through. It was the wife would go to her mom every time that they had an argument. So
Right.
husband and wife have an argument. Wife goes to mom. He yelled at me. He said this. He said that. Wife and husband would make up. Mom
then
doesn't get
there's
any
still-
closure.
yeah.
And so over just a short period of time, Mom hates this guy
Yeah.
Right.
because he's always mean to my baby. They're always fighting. It's his fault because she's only getting one perspective. And so now they're growing in their relationship, and Mom is now actively undermining the relationship because she's looking at him like he's the bad guy. And so the problem was self-created because they weren't dealing with it with each other. They were bringing Mom into it.
Right.
And Mom wasn't there when they made up.
People do that with friends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people do
brothers
that with
and
friends. They do.
sisters.
Oh yeah.
So you got to be careful. You know, you've got to be careful to protect your relationship. It's interesting the we're a team thing. I've seen that play out badly in a lot of ways. Like when people say, "This is my money. This is my money." Not that you shouldn't have money that you can spend and do whatever you want with. That's
Right.
not what I'm saying. But people do that with money, where it's
Yeah,
kind of a
absolutely.
selfish struggle. I see people do it in a lot of ways where they kind of keep a part of their life to themselves and that kind of stuff. And so,
Well, even just as simple as what we're talking about with conflict, if you come into the argument with the attitude that I've got to get my way and win, it's forgetting that we're the team.
Yeah.
That if I win the argument, I'm really losing, and that I'm chipping away at her ability to trust me that we're the team. And so if we forget that and we approach conflict and disagreement from a position of, I got to get my way, then you're losing from the beginning.
Right.
Really, with conflict, most of the time it's, deal with it, but I don't think I've ever been so angry that we're just yelling and screaming and,
yeah.
just taking stabs at each other. If I ever felt that angry, it's, I'm gonna walk outside. Let me,
Yeah.
That's
let
a
me
good
cool
idea.
off.
And like the whole parent thing, like we're pretty much to ourselves. We handle whatever, and
Yeah.
it's between us,
And
you know. And I
I've
feel
definitely, I've always been a really private,
Yeah.
reserved type person. So it's anything that's between us stays between us, and it's always going to be that way.
Yeah, I think those are pretty healthy patterns. And that's good for people out there listening to know that's the good way to do it, you know?
So what are the things, as you guys look back across the last 3 years, that are different than you expected them to be? I think I shared with
The amount of Amazon boxes that
Oh.
seem to appear at the door.
Yeah.
That was.
Can we
that's
blame
unexpected.
Addie on that part?
No, we can't. We can't blame her
because
it was
she can't
before
log
that.
in.
Yeah.
She didn't know the
He
password.
does not have a credit card.
Sorry.
Oh, my goodness.
So okay, that's a legit thing. I think Ann was shocked. We've joked about me using her toothbrush.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I've never done that.
You've never used her toothbrush. I still don't understand why that's terrible.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I don't
It
think it's
is.
a bad idea if you can't find your own toothbrush, but
That's usually when that would go down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was okay. I bought like a multi-pack of toothbrushes and
There you
said,
go.
here you go.
So number of packages that come in's been a little shocking. So how about you? Is there anything that you weren't expecting?
I mean, not really. Just because,
probably the fact that I'm kind of I wouldn't say handyman, but I like to build things.
yeah,
Sure.
so there's
And-
always a mess in the garage. And like, I can't pull in.
Well, she kind of, in my opinion, she started it. Like I hadn't really
do.
picked up a hammer and nails in a long time, and she
Yeah.
said, I want a desk.
Yeah,
So I had to build
Pinterest
a desk.
comes up.
So I built her a desk, and then she posted it, so that turned into building somebody else a desk.
It's just turned into,
So-
yeah, so that was kind of my fault.
Are you making money?
Well, I did on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, but then it's just been little
Well, let me
stuff
add
here
to
and
some
there.
conflict. We need a table that 4 people can sit at.
There you
We've
go.
talked about. We've tried to find some online. We've looked at Amazon
That's funny.
Marketplace, and so let's
Absolutely.
get on that.
I'm
We
sure
need-
I can figure something out.
Yeah,
But
and-
with price of lumber, you might actually
Yeah,
be
that
a
is true.
little
Yeah.
cheaper buying something.
And then
That's
I don't
true.
get to park in the garage.
Yeah, well, that's,
That's
true.
right.
We don't want to cause conflict.
That's true.
It'll be okay.
So, and you guys have really bring up a good point that a lot of times when there is conflict in the relationship, when there are misplaced expectations, those really come from a lack of communication and not talking about things and not being honest with somebody and not recognizing that marriage isn't like a really long date, that
Right.
you
Right.
have to
Right.
be yourself and you have to be able to say to each other, hey, I'm going to need some time alone. So I need you to go somewhere where I'm not,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And that not being offensive to somebody and not bringing things up that hurt people.
Yeah. Like we know if one of us says, "Hey, we're going to the bedroom to watch whatever," that means like
That's not an
okay.
invitation
No,
to come,
that's like
come with.
It's you
No, it's
find
like,
your own TV show to watch in the
absolutely.
living room.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And those sort of things you learn over time but we've talked about it. We've talked about it to the point that Ann and I have joked that we almost need T-shirts printed up that just say communicate, communicate,
Absolutely.
communicate.
Yeah.
Because we can't. Ann and I have been married for 30 years. It's really common for me to look at her and go, "Hey, you know the guy from The Thing," and she knows what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I still can't read her mind.
Right.
And she still has to say to me, if you don't take the trash out, I'm going to kill you because I'm really tired of this. And so we have to communicate and keep those sort of things moving forward. So we haven't had any conflict with holidays, any of the.
Not between ourselves. It's usually with the in-laws.
See, that comes back to leave
Yeah.
and cleave.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think,
We just kind of, I mean, we had it set just so you know, we did our premarital counseling.
and it changed when we had
Of course,
Addie.
it would
Sure.
change. We wanted to be at home for Christmas, you know, that kind of thing. We were just alternating Christmas and Thanksgiving. You know, we would be there, here, you know, vice versa. But now we're like, okay, we're going to be at home for Christmas. That way, Addie is at home Christmas morning, all that kind of stuff. So we just had to change some things this year.
And I think this past year we went to Huntsville a couple days early and spent time up
Yeah.
there
Sure.
with everybody before we came back the day after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
See, and so that's a creative way to work through that. So how did COVID affect things with you guys being? You guys both had COVID
We
at the
did.
same time,
Yes.
so y'all were stuck in the house together and quarantining
Yeah.
for 2 weeks. How did that go?
For me, I'm one of those, I have to be up
Yeah.
doing something.
Sure.
So me not being able to do anything was horrible.
And then so
Absolutely
that led
horrible.
to him being like, oh my God, I can't do anything. You know, I'm like, okay, I get it. You know, so it was just back and forth. But neither one of us really felt great. But then once we kind of felt better, he was out in the garage. And that was our, you
So
know,
did y'all
long
kind of
time.
take care of each other? Did,
Yeah,
Hey, get
yeah.
me a Gatorade.
Oh, yeah. We
And by
lived
the
off-
time you get up and get a Gatorade and, you know, maybe a sandwich or something, and you sit back down, you're exhausted and you
Yeah.
fall asleep.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So you
And
just
then-
slept it away.
Oh, yeah, we tried. And then with Addie, you know, we just kind of switched
I think
up.
it was the complete opposite effect on her.
Yeah, she was 90 to nothing.
Wow.
Did she
My-
have it?
Well, the doctor just said to keep. I never took her and got her tested or anything.
They just
but
assumed that she probably did,
Yeah.
but she didn't really show
She-
any kind of symptoms at all.
But
Well, that's good.
Yeah, that is good.
That's really good.
Yeah, that can be scary.
Well, let's go ahead and take a commercial break and pay the bills, and then we'll come back to Not Another Church Podcast. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome back to Not Another Church Podcast. We've been talking about expectations. We've been talking about conflict, and that kind of leads us to one of the things that often causes conflict that people often we forget. I mean, I've literally taught this for the last 15 years and regularly forget that this is the case, that oftentimes conflict actually comes from not from a person being right or wrong or correct or incorrect. It comes more from the fact that women and men tend to look at life from completely different perspectives. One of the ways that we can see that is, I think I shared with you guys, I had gone to a marriage enrichment class thing that where the guy said, "Okay, so today we're going to talk about women are spaghetti and men are pizza." And when he first said that, I thought to myself, "This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life." And it turned out to be really helpful. And this is what people mean by saying that: is with ladies, everything is all interconnected. The day that she had, the things that are pressing on her mind, all of those affect everything. Whereas men have we have a tendency to compartmentalize things. If we're not careful, that can create hypocrisy. There are people, because we naturally compartmentalize. Here's work me, here's home me, here's church me, and so the church me and the work me over a lifetime become really far away from each other.
Right.
And if we're not careful, we'll say that Jesus and my faith is a box. Just like I have a box for work, I have a box for home life, I have a box for hunting, I have a box for football. I've got a Jesus box. And what Jesus doesn't want to be a box. He wants to own all the boxes.
Right.
And so it's easy for men to do that. But where you most see that played out is in our romantic life, because if I come home and I've had a horrible day, the car's broken down, and I'm just in a bad mood, but Ann were to say, "Hey, let's throw some Barry White on. Let's light some candles," I'm in. I mean, just go bam. Yay. Whereas if I came home from work when she was staying home with the kids when the kids were little, and we always joked that if the spanking spoon was in her back pocket, it had been a bad day. If there was a broken spanking spoon on the countertop, it had been a real bad day. So she's had a bad day. There's spaghetti thrown on the wall. There's yogurt smeared into the couch. And I were to say, "Hey, after we get the kids to bed, we think about, you've lost your ever-loving mind." But it's not just in that area. It's really in all areas where Ann can't go from having, and we had this happen not too long ago, where Ann and one of the kids were having conflict, and she came into the room and was acting upset. And like all men, I'm going, "What'd I do? Why are you mad at me?" And it had nothing to do with me. It was just that.
I mean, that can be controlled, though. I mean, I think the reason we bring this up so much, and I know y'all have heard it a million times, is that if you're aware of it, you can do something about it.
Yeah.
Or you can see the other person's side and you can realize what's going on. If you don't understand what makes the other person tick, you're just life is a mystery, and you're just confused all the time. And so it's helpful to understand what the other person is going through, but you can't control it some, because sometimes, that something like that'll happen. Like I'm in I've had a bad day at work or whatever, and I come home and then I snap at Tom or whatever, and he's like, "What? I didn't do anything," And then if he basically gently says, "Did something happen at work?" then I can sort of correct myself and go, okay, I'm going to go chill for a
Right.
second. I'm going to go regroup, because it's not fair to my family. So you can't use it as an excuse.
Yeah.
But it's good to be self-aware so that you can say, okay, I got all the things touching. Everything is being affected by my mood. And so I need to think about that. I need to change my attitude and come, go walk on the treadmill for 20 minutes.
There you go.
And get some frustrations out, and then come back and say, okay, you aren't responsible for what happened in this situation. And so it helps
It's just
us.
that your boss at work's being a jerk.
Right. That's right. Tom's my boss. Okay, so go ahead.
And in that, in recognizing that everybody's coming from a different perspective, we talk about what motivates us and what drives us. And if we don't realize that those motivators, those drivers, are different from person to person, it can cause us to inadvertently be jerks. It can cause us to not meet the other person's emotional needs, physical needs, et cetera, because. And a good, a stereotypical example of that is that women and their desire for intimacy want to just sit down and talk. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, because a woman wants to have meaningful relationship. I mean, wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of times the word "let's talk about this" makes us a little nauseous.
Yeah. It always has.
But
I don't know why.
well, I mean,
It-
I mean, you
it's
think
not-
you're in trouble? I mean,
Yeah.
no.
Usually,
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, if your boss calls you and says we need to talk about some things,
Yeah.
you think
That's not a
yeah,
good-
You think you're gonna get a write up, or you gonna get a lot of trouble? You gonna get yelled at?
or if your girlfriend says we need to talk,
That's a breakup
yeah, you're
automatically.
that, guaranteed.
that's
Yeah.
true. That's true.
and
That's
so,
true.
so the idea of talking, those
Yes,
of you who are
but
listening
women
don't know I'm air
like
quoting.
to connect.
Right.
Like emotionally connect. Women like to be heard and have a good conversation that's back and forth. They want to know what you think and you feel, and they want to tell you what they think and they feel. And
And you respond.
yes.
So I can't just stare at the TV while you're talking.
Absolutely
That's
not.
why the whole thing with the phone, where you're just doing that,
Yeah.
you know, reading your phone while somebody's talking to you. A woman hates that.
Oh, yeah.
Hates that because it gives you that feeling of you're not important to me. I'm not paying attention to you, and you're not listening. But you know, for the ADD people, that's tough
Yeah.
because
Mhm.
they
Oh, yeah.
kind of have to do something with their hands.
Right.
That's me. I'm always
Oh, yeah.
doing fidgeting, doing something.
Yes.
Right.
But sometimes she'll be talking about something that happened to work. So one of my number one questions is, hey, how am I supposed to feel about this?
Oh yes, absolutely, smart man.
You're
Like-
telling him how he's supposed to feel.
Like, do I need to be just as mad as you are right now,
I'm
or
like,
do
yes.
so?
I love that. Yes, yes, you are.
Absolutely.
Well, and a lot of times because most men are naturally mechanics. If
Yeah.
you tell us a problem,
Yeah, he wants to fix it.
we want to fix it. And you know the term mansplaining comes to mind, where we go, well, what you need to do, honey, is, and that's not what she wants to hear. She doesn't need you to whiteboard out. Okay, this is how you're going to fix this.
But you guys are only 3 years in, and you've already learned the very important point that if she's talking to you, you are going to do one of two things. You're going to get upset because she's upset, and you're going to go handle it, or you're going to fix it, or you're going to offer a solution. Sometimes women want that. Not most of the time. Maybe 10% of the
Yeah.
time in life, you know. Or you're just supposed to sit there and listen.
Yep.
Because she just needs to vent, or she needs to share her heart with you, and you're very smart to be like, which is it?
Yes. Well, and Anne
can
actually
really mess that up.
And Anne will often preface the conversation by saying, "I don't need you to fix this.
Yeah.
I need you to I just need to talk to you about
Yes.
this. Don't no." And so I know. Okay. Now I will say that, and this is just I'm speaking for men, that when we hear the words, "I don't need you to fix this," but it's really you have to work to stay engaged, because if I'm not fixing it, why am I here? What?
Because you got a constant plan on how to fix it going in your head.
Right.
If
And
they're-
you're saying to yourself over and over, "Shut up."
And I think what women don't do well, and we need to probably do better, is we need to recognize that your spouse's desire to help you and to fix your problems is his way of saying, I love you.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of ways to say I love you without saying I love you.
Right.
You know, mamas say, be careful. That's I love you when mamas speak. You know what I mean? When your teenager
Yeah.
goes out the door and you're terrified that they're going to wreck or speed or
Right.
whatever, you know. And so that's one of those things that men do because they've got your back. They're on your side. They
And I really want to go punch that guy.
they
Can I- can I
want
please?
things to be okay, you know. And that's sweet.
Right. Oh, yeah.
You know, it's wonderful, but a lot of times we bash them for it. And that's not fair. I mean, we're like, stop trying to fix it, you know? I just want you to listen. But if you stop to think, that really is sweet,
Yeah.
you know? Now, there are times, there's that 10% where I do want you to fix it. And that happened recently, and I don't remember what happened, but I remember starting the conversation with, I'm not just talking, I need you to fix this. And I think it was something going on with one of our kids, and I needed him to go talk to a boyfriend or whatever and be like, I don't think so. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Get ready. That the cute little Addie's going to grow up, and you're going to have to sit down and have conversations with the boys.
I'm kind of excited about it.
Oh my god.
Oh, I had
She won't be.
No.
I know, and that's
I'm
what I'm
scared
most
for
excited
her.
about.
as I have those conversations, it's really fun. The house that we live in, you can pretty much identify where anybody is in the house with the creaking of the floors, and I'll hear everybody in the other room, and I can picture them all up against the wall.
Listening. Oh my goodness.
So, we have to recognize that in all of this, that men want to feel like they're successful, that they're involved, and women want to feel valued, like we care. Whichever the response is, we've got to maintain the fact that they're not looking at life the same way that I am. And you know what? That's we've separated this out as men and women, but the reality is every human
Individuals.
being looks at life from a different perspective, and part of the fun of being married is learning that this person is looking at life differently than me and trying to appreciate the way that they're doing it and living life to make them happy and feeling the way that they need to feel, so that we're both going through life being successful.
Yeah.
And so, honestly, her perspective, although it's different than mine, is going to help me be a better human being because hers is so different. In fact, we've joked when we first got married, Ann was painfully shy. And now she's much more outgoing than she ever was. I was really so outgoing that it was to a level of social ineptness, and she's toned me back.
Yeah.
And so we've made each other better over the 30 years at just living, just being good.
Yeah, because you just learn from each other, and that's what I'm one to like jump the gun and like, okay, let's do this, and he's like, no, we need to like think about it. And I'm like,
He's
yeah,
pretty steady.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm like,
So he's a
okay.
planner.
You're not impulsive, are
I
you?
like to be
I mean,
A little bit.
just a little.
like I need this, and this,
Yeah.
and then we can go do whatever it is. Like I need a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, she's my planner. I'm the one that's like, hey, let's go to New Orleans this weekend.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, and he's like, wait a minute, hang on. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, you're probably right.
See, I've been that guy, like just jump the gun, let's go do whatever. But you know, it also gets you in a lot of trouble sometimes. So
Yeah, when
not-
she says, hey,
That's-
Biggin, we don't have any money in the bank, and that's going to require money. Oh, yeah.
But sometimes it is fun to be impulsive or to do the fun thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom's big on adventure. And so sometimes it is fun to have an adventure.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
You just have to, you kind of have to,
Have a plan.
yeah.
Have a plan. And it can be frustrating when, I mean, we did this weekend. We loaded up and went to Anniston just because we just were going to find a fancy
We walk
neighborhood.
a lot, like on the weekends, and we're always trying to find new places to walk because we get bored with the same scenery.
Oh, yeah.
So we've done Turntine, you know, we've
Oh, yeah.
done Silver Lakes, we've done all the different places with sidewalks or whatever. So we found the historic district in Anniston, and we were like, okay, let's go there.
So we kind of had a place on the map, but as we're driving to this place, we pass a place that had some really cool Victorian-style houses, and I said, hey, y'all want to just stop here? And everybody in the car said, yes.
Sure.
So we stopped, and we walked maybe a block, and she says, this isn't where we planned on being. What are you doing? Why are we here? And I'm like, I said, do you want to? And anyway, so
I thought it was the other place. Yeah.
so that's a good example of it would have been easy for me to get upset because I'm like, I asked you, which I did, and you said yes. And her thinking in her mind, this is not the plan we had. We said we were going here, we were going to do this, we were going to walk this far, we're going to take a bathroom break and go to Taco Bell, and then we were going to do this, 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 and this. You're violating the plan. And so both of us could have gotten angry with each other, or we could have been mature enough to suck it up and say,
So what we did was we walked around that area a little bit till we saw the cool houses. And there was one in particular house that he and Emily wanted to see. And then, so I was flexible with that. And then he was flexible. And then he said, okay, let's load up and let's go to the place that we intended. So I think part of marriage is being flexible
Right.
with each other
Yeah.
and not saying, I got to have my way.
Yeah, it's got to be this, this, and this. You just got to.
Flexibility can be
yeah.
hard. You know, changing the plan can be hard.
Oh yeah.
Because deep down at heart, we're really all 3-year-olds. We want our way.
Right.
I want my way.
And nobody likes change.
No, nobody likes change. So I'm looking at our notes here.
One thing I was going to say is, isn't it cool how, if you notice other couples, you'll notice this, that God puts people together that have a lot in common in the big areas.
Right.
You know, like the things that really matter.
Jesus.
Usually you have things in common, big things. But then a lot of times your spouse is the opposite of you in some of the other ways. Like you guys are like this, we're like this. Look around. All people are like that. A lot of couples are this way. One's an introvert, one's an extrovert to some degree, you know. One's good with money, one's bad with money. We call them savers and spenders. You know, one is a planner. That'd be you. One is not as much, maybe. So there's all these different ways.
One
that
likes
you-
to save, one likes Amazon packages to be at the door.
Yeah.
That's right. But you know, it's like it can cause conflict, but it can also be really cool because you complement each other
Right.
and you sort of make this whole package of what you need in a family.
It just brings
unit.
everything together.
It does. And so, you know, the Bible talks about you becoming one. And if you were exactly the same on everything, then that would conflict.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's really cool how God does that and brings people
is.
together.
And it's fun to watch other couples as you see those complementary aspects of each other, where one's a spender and one's a saver.
Right.
And I've often heard that oftentimes the things that attract us to the person, if we're not careful, the enemy can turn those to where those things are the things that annoy us. And so we let the very fact that God brought you together to complement each other for, you know, the saver protects the spender from bankruptcy and the spender protects the saver from not enjoying life and being Scrooge McDuck who just has a bunch of money. And so that we're both making each other better. But it is fun to watch. It's not fun to watch the conflict, but it's fun to watch kind of the tensions as they go. And so,
Yeah, you got to be careful not to let those things ruin your marriage, though.
Right.
I mean, some people do.
Oh,
some
yeah.
people only focus on the differences instead of realizing that you're pulling, like he was talking before, he's making me more outgoing. I'm pulling
Yeah.
him in to be more reserved. And, you know, it's iron sharpening iron.
yeah,
Imagine
there you go.
that.
And you guys will learn with Addie and any other kids that come down the pike. I'm not being a prophet here, but that even I used to think that it was that I'm one way and she's the other way. But as the child enters different phases of life, there are times where I'm the firm one with this particular child, and it just kind of comes naturally. And then she's the one that's like, all right, so and then there are other times when it's vice versa. And God needs both of you to be doing your job for Addie to grow up to be a healthy, well-adjusted, Christ-loving child or human being, is because there are times when Addie's going to need you to be the hammer and say, that boy ain't coming in this house again,
Right.
or I'm going to own his head in a box under the bed. I do know how to
She
dispose of a
also
body.
needs a nurturer,
Yes.
which would be Ashlyn.
She needs somebody that will sit with her and cry because the boy has
Oh yeah.
has dumped her. And so those complementary areas that work out in our marriage also work out in our parenting. And so as Addie grows, don't stifle the other person's ability, because that child's going to need structure. And one of you, and you know, it seems to be different with boys and girls. Like we have a tendency with boys to be the hard one, and then with the girls to be the ones that's the, hey baby, come here, you daddy's little girl, and then vice versa, where Ann has a tendency to be stricter with the girls, where I'm more. But a child needs structure, and they need nurturing. A child with William, because we've had 4 girls. William would come along and be diving off the top of the couch, or we would be around some of his boy friends when he was little, and they'd be punching each other and wrestling, and she's flipping out. She's
Oh
like,
yeah, I remember distinctly one time calling you at work and going, "These kids are in the backyard beating each other up. What am I going to do?" And you going, "Okay, well, describe it to me." And I described it to him. I mean, I was freaking out.
Yeah.
And they were little and rolling around in the grass and the whole thing. So I start describing it, and Tom is like, "They're wrestling. They're boys." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah. Okay,
we used to
okay."
have
You know what?
boxing tournaments.
yeah.
But I had 4 girls. I was used
Right.
to baby dolls and patting each other on the head. And then
I am 50 years old, and right now, if you wanted to get some BB guns and run around and shoot each other, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I am so in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he wanted me to get him a Nerf gun for Christmas.
We
I
have
knew
Nerf
better,
wars in the
though.
house.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
Yes, you didn't like it when I got William Nerf guns and we were chasing each other around the house, shooting each other in the head.
drove me crazy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done well with 5 boys.
Yeah, yes. And
but-
those Nerf bullets, when they get in the vacuum cleaner, will tear it up.
Yeah,
Really?
they will.
Yes, be careful.
But
So
all that to say, I needed him to be like, "Can you relax? Like,
Right.
these are boys. They're acting like boys, and that's a good thing.
boys
know?
need to draw blood.
Yeah. So I relaxed, and I was like, "Okay, sure."
And I was also the one that protected him when his sisters wanted to paint his fingernails.
Yes, that happened.
Had I not been there, she would have.
It happened one time. He was very tiny, like under a year old, or maybe about a year. And I was painting Emily and Molly's toenails, and he's a little kid. He's a baby. He
Yeah.
wanted to do what they were doing.
Right.
And so he wanted me to paint his toenails, and I did. And then Tom came home from work. And he was like, "Don't ever do that again." And
Yeah.
I was like, "Why? What's the problem?" He didn't want to be left out. And he's like, "Well, find something else for him to do, whatever." And I kind of see the wisdom in that now.
Right.
I
Right.
was like, okay. Because right now,
There's
he
a lot of
doesn't like that
confusion.
story. He's
Oh, I bet
19,
he
and now he's
doesn't.
like,
Oh
"No,
yeah,
I don't
he's like,
know."
no. Yes. So, all that to say that complementarianism that goes on in your life will carry over into parenting, and let your spouse take the role that God's given them. And sometimes in the couplehood, you let things happen, but then in the parenting, you may be the child that's more the parent that's more the nurturer, and when dad becomes the hammer, you're like, "Oh, don't you spank that baby?" Or
Yeah, like Addie's only 8 months old, and I see that now. Like, we kind of switch up. I can tell. If you think
an 8-month-old will look at you square in the face and lie.
Well, she probably can't talk.
It doesn't
yet.
matter.
I mean,
That's
now, she gives that look.
all you got to do. I've seen this TikTok where the mom has the baby and she walks by a door and she slaps the door and makes the loud boom, and then goes, "Oh, baby, are you okay?" And the baby instantly starts crying, leaning up against mom. Oh, and
that's funny.
but it's all that's a lie. That is a straight up lie. You are not hurt, child. And I will say, all of my kids by 8 or 9 months had learned no, mine. I mean,
Some of the first words they learn.
yes. Well, and when their siblings come along, mine will become a
Oh,
big
yeah.
naughty word, because they will not touch something in the room, but their brother or sister gets it, and then all of a sudden we're snatching
Oh,
out
yeah.
mine. So let each other excel in what God has gifted them to do. Anything else you want to add to complimenting each other and expectations?
No.
Anything
about
you guys
y'all?
want to add?
I don't think so.
Any advice you want to give the married couples out there?
I know this is what we always say, but communicate. It's just what it comes down to.
It's definitely the best thing to
Yeah.
do.
It's hard, but it's worth it.
Outstanding. So, hey, I thank you for joining us today for Not Another Church podcast, and go serve your King. This has been Not Another Church podcast with your host, Pastor Tom. Thanks for listening, and go serve your King.